This episode of Q Point Podcast is pre-recorded, produced and sponsored by Karina Quirk, broker at Next Home Experience.
Different views.
I know your story.
From different cues.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Karina Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
Q Point.
Joining us now in studio is Brewer Police Chief Christopher Martin. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you for coming back. We appreciate it.
So I noticed the Maine Wire first reported the incident involving a child who was reportedly poked by a discarded needle on the Brewer Riverwalk. You mentioned that's how you first learned about it. How did that all take place?
Yeah, they did a live posting. So the father of the child who got poked, he called the Maine Wire reporter because they're close friends. And he said, hey, my kid just got poked with a needle. What do I do? And the advice was to go to the hospital. So father and son en route to the hospital, the Wire reporter goes down to try to find the needle so that he can bring it to the hospital for testing. And they do this video post. And then staff came in and said, you better look at the Maine Wire. So I took a look at it. I called Steve Robinson and I said, Steve, can you put me in contact with this reporter? I really need to get the information to find out what the heck happened.
Well, I know from our previous conversations how important the Brewer Riverwalk is to the community. It's so beautiful. How is the city reacting to that news?
Well, initially, we have to find out what happened. And the second thing is we need to make this park safe. One person being poked, one kid being poked is one too many. It shouldn't happen. Needles in our parks, it shouldn't happen. It does, it can, but it shouldn't. And I don't want to turn this into an acceptable thing in Brewer. This should be all hands on deck, and that's the way we're going to treat it. So we called the other departments, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Fire Department, and everyone went down en masse, and we cleared that entire waterfront trail, looking in the bushes along the shoreline, trying to remove anything that could be hazardous to anybody visiting it. We found a total of 3 needles. They all were along the riprap and high water mark of the river. 1 crack pipe in the bushes and 1 needle cap. But we were able to, within an hour, be able to say, hey, this park is clear. It was really special because nobody complained about going down to do this manual searching. Our river walk is the crown jewel, and everyone takes so much pride in it. And when a child gets poked with a needle, it was important to all of us. And we went down and made sure that that was taken care of. The second thing is the needle that did poke the child was behind some bushes in the mulch. So obviously somebody had used in the park at some point, and this little critter was out behind the bushes and got a hold of it.
We did a podcast with a gentleman who was running for city council for Bangor, and he mentioned to us over a year period, there was over 350,000 needles passed out in Bangor. So obviously they're probably going to show up everywhere. Am I right?
Yeah, well, they do, because the people that are using them are mobile. They walk around, they go places. So it's just not going to stay in the area that is passed out. But the other thing is the river. If you follow along the railroad tracks along the Penobscot River on the other side from us, there are a lot of abandoned encampments that used to be along there, and the ground is covered in needles. And guess what happens when you have storms and the wind? It goes down in the river. I've talked to people that were out in boats and saw needles float by. There are needles washing upon people's properties down in Orrington and Hamden. So this is also a pollutant. And talk about the forever chemicals that are getting into the waterway and stuff. When we had the encampments on Condestade Stream, that stuff was getting in the water. So they're going to be transported down along the river. You're going to have that issue. And you're going to have people that are just taking their needles and using them wherever and then throwing them away in the public.
I know there's a rumor that's out there that says, oh, Brewer, they won't allow anyone on their side that's unhoused. They turn them away. Do you just want to clarify that?
Yeah, that's completely false. We hold people accountable. If you come to Brewer and you break the law, we're going to hold you to account. We're not going to drive by somebody who's passed out on the sidewalk, who's open-air drug use, indecent exposure, creating a disturbance. We're not driving by that. We're going to deal with it. We're not going to have encampments in public spaces. We're going to deal with it. Now, if you come over and you mind your P's and Q's, you're not going to have a problem with us. You come over and you misbehave, I guarantee you will meet us and we will deal with you and we'll hold you to account. That's not about not allowing homeless in Brewer. This is about holding people responsible to behave and keeping the city safe and enjoyable for everybody else.
For those that may not be familiar with it, can you walk us through the reported Devin Anderson incident? What happened there?
Yeah, Devin Anderson had been locked up at the county jail in a probation hold, and he was released on a Friday because he had been in jail for over 40 days and could not get representation. He was indigent and couldn't get a lawyer, so the judge released him because of a due process argument. He came out in the community, showed up in Brewer, actually followed a woman around Hannaford on a Sunday. She went to staff and said, "This guy's really creeping me out. Can you help me?" Staff called the police. Police came up. We removed him. We gave him a harassment warning. We gave him a trespass warning. And then on Monday, he's back in the Hannaford lot. He picks out a woman who's in her car, gets in her car while she's in it. He starts rubbing his genitals through his clothing and then reaches over and grabs her arm and says, "Why don't you help me with this?" And she was terrified. She's screaming, "Get out, get out, get out." Eventually, he does get out. We go up there and we arrest him. He's on probation. He had been released. He shouldn't have been released. He had already been locked up prior on 2 other probation violations. The reason why he's on probation stemmed from an incident in Bangor in which he grabbed a female officer, and he grabbed her by the hair and beat her head against the pavement, put her in the hospital, concussive. So that's why he's on probation. He's transient. He came to us from the West Coast, Oregon area. His criminal history from California to Oregon is the same as what we're seeing in Maine. And there you have it. He's on probation, homeless, serious mental health issues, and then he assaults a woman in Bangor, follows her around. So his victimology, he selects females, and he stalks them, and he grabs them. So he gets arrested on his first probation violation for that, and he's new criminal charges, so he's put on bail. And then you fast forward a period of time, and he follows another woman in downtown Bangor and assaults her. So now he's locked up on his second probation violation, another new charge, a charge of violation of bail, and another new set of bail conditions. And then fast forward to the July Brewer event where he's released from jail. Now he's back in on his third probation hold, multiple violation of bail charges, and new criminal conduct on top of that.
So I guess what you're saying is there's no justice in this. You guys arrest him. He goes to jail. He doesn't get an attorney, so he can't be prosecuted. And then he gets out again?
Well, you got to look at the system. There's systematic failures here. And the first question is, what happened? Why did it happen? And how do we prevent it? So I started working the phones, and I spoke with the upper levels of probation pro. And I said, please explain to me how he got out. I want the explanation because this is what's happened at Brewer. And I also want you to explain to me, if you release him again, what are you going to do to properly monitor him so this doesn't happen to anybody else in Brewer? The answer was they didn't even know he was released. They were unaware that he had been released. And then the other piece of it, they said, well, he's got serious mental illness. Well, that's not my problem. I don't care if he's serious mental ill, if he belongs in an insane asylum, if he belongs in a jail, but he doesn't belong on the street. He didn't belong in Brewer, and he didn't belong in that woman's car that day. How is this story going to end? Was it going to be a carjacking? Was it going to be a rape? Was it going to be a murder? Who knows? So it shouldn't have happened. There was a breakdown in the system. So the next step was I talked to the prosecutor's office. I talked to the sheriff. Hey, what do your records show? And the bottom line is he was locked up. It was greater than a month. He's indigent. He could not get representation, which I don't understand why, because we have a public defender's office, and I think that they're certainly not anywhere near as overloaded with work as our prosecutors are. But yet he can't get one. And on the basis of a due process violation, he's released on that. And then bad things happen. It was a failure. Now, part of this, I think you can blame the legislature. They passed the bail reform, the in, the out. We've talked about that in the past. Somehow they thought that this was going to save money, and perhaps it has on jail costs, but it certainly doesn't make the streets any safer because there's no accountability. What do you care if you're out getting into trouble every single day and you walk around with 15 sets of bail conditions? What's the difference between 15 sets and 25 sets? And each new set you get meant that you committed new crimes while out on bail. Nothing happens. So what makes them behave? It used to be you had a contract. This is a social contract where you get your freedom, but you behave. And if you can't behave in society, then you're going to go sit in jail, right? But that doesn't exist. That bail reform really screwed things up, and it did not make Maine more safe. It's made us less stable. And the other piece to this is there have been several reforms to the probation system to be more of a rehabilitative and social working thing. But I don't understand for the life of me how, if you're on probation, there's an assumption there that somebody's monitoring you and making sure you're doing the right things, attending counseling, take your medication. Well, in the case of Devin Anderson, that wasn't happening. Why even put him on probation? You're just checking a box. doesn't mean anything. So we got to fix the system. We have to have better communications. There's no reason why when you run a person for warrants that NCIC couldn't also tell you if they're on probation. Currently, the only way we can check is we got to get to a computer and enter their name through a database online. Well, when an officer's in the field, that's not going to happen. And if you're asking a dispatcher to do that on every single person we talk to, they got other calls to deal with. So why are we operating these silos to make it more difficult? A lot of these people don't tell us they're on probation. And the only way we're going to find out is if we punch their name through an independent search. That's easily fixed. It takes a little bit of money, and suddenly they're in the NCIC. You run their name on the radio, and you have it. They're on probation. So those are things that we could fix. I think we need to take a really strong look at why can't we get representation for indigent defendants. Currently, right now, I had a meeting with the district attorney's office last week with Chelsea Lins, and currently there's over 90 people that are locked up in jail on serious offenses that cannot get attorney representation and are indigent. And if that can't be resolved within a short period of time, then you have this due process constitutional crisis, and therefore they get released. So think about this. 100 people of some serious things in jail that can't get an attorney, even though we have a public defender's office that oversees all of this indigent defense, and yet they could be released in the street within the next few weeks. This makes zero sense. So it makes you wonder, for when they passed all the laws and this gets sketched out and designed, is this an intentional effect or is it a result of extreme incompetence? It's one or the other.
And you know who gets the brunt of the blame is, the police. They're not doing anything.
Yeah, the police, the prosecutors. The blame is always pushed onto the judges, always pushed onto the people that are the front-facing the public. If we have needles in Brewer, then it's got to be because Brewer's not doing the right things. And let's not look at how poorly managed the SSP needle programs are, because it is. It's a travesty. It's been a hot mess forever. And there's your root cause. It's poorly managed with very little accountability. But yet, we're going to get blamed if these things pop up. Not the policymakers, not the creators of this. People get released, bail reform. We're getting the blame because people experience the results. And really what they have to look at on a lot of these issues is, how did this come to be? Who created this darn idea? And who voted for it? That's where the blame lies, not us. This is the hand we're dealt. And we do the absolute best we can to achieve the mission of safety and security. And I think Brewer does a fantastic job with that. But nonetheless, it makes it very, very challenging.
So the big question for listeners to think about is, what is going on with the public defender's office?
Yeah, because no matter what happens, whether it's one of their state employees and whether one of them takes a case or declines a case, if you take an outside lawyer that's getting paid by the state, that's still overseen by the public defender's office of who's approved and what they can take and what type of cases. It's all under this umbrella. So if you're having this log jam, we can't get people to represent. Ultimately, it's under the umbrella of the public defender's office or system within the state of Maine, and it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed like yesterday. There's no excuse for this. And if this was the private sector, what you do is you look at outputs, you look at performance measurements and your matrices, and at the end of the day, you're going to have these check-in points saying, how are we doing? Is the plan working? Are we achieving anything? If we're not, then we're going to restructure, recalibrate, and go in a different direction. And at some point, if you're just dumping money, and you have nothing to show for it, you're going to end it. So none of this happens. In this government world, realistically, these things aren't happening. And people should be looking at, what are we spending for resources? What are we achieving as a result of it? Do we need to change directions? Do we need to tighten things up? Where are the accountability pieces?
Because essentially these folks that have 18 to 25 sets of bail, they've never gone to court.
No, they might have a bail hearing. In some instances, you're getting cashless bail. They go in, they process the paperwork, and they're out. In other instances, they spend a night, maybe 2 days in jail. They go in front of a judge, and then they're put out on bail. They don't spend very long, and the case isn't truly adjudicated. And the more trouble they get into, it all kind of gets lumped together because it's the only efficient way you can deal with it through the judicial system, and they end up getting these deals, these sweetheart deals of a couple weeks in jail for 35 offenses. That clears up the case log, but does that make the victims feel good when their particular cases were dumped or dismissed? No, it doesn't. So we all have a stake in the justice system, and people want to be made whole. as well. And right now, things need to be rethought about. And we've had a lot of bad policy that was passed in legislation, and we're seeing the results of that right now.
We have heard a lot of these transients have come from out of state. Why do you think they're coming from all over the country to the Bangor area?
We are the land of milk and honey, the promised land. I've talked to 2 people within the past week. Why are you here? What brought you here? One was at a Bar Harbor, and they said, well, we were told this is where all the resources are at. We had another person who came from New York, and they actually told us that a police officer bought him a bus ticket, told him to go to Bangor because there was lots of stuff for him in Bangor. And they ended up over in Brewer because they felt that they were safer in Brewer than they were in Bangor. Brewer is a safe place, and I guess now that's also the word traveling through the homelessness community too, is come to Brewer because you'll probably not get beat up as much or something like that. But they are coming from all over. These aren't anecdotal. We hear about these all the time. Bangor hears this all the time. We have lots of people coming from away. And somehow, and I don't know on what platform, but word is getting out, not just throughout the state of Maine, but throughout the country, that if you come here, there's stuff for you. In the state of Maine, I can kind of explain that more because we've set up these service hubs. You have service hubs that are known like Bangor, Lewiston, Portland, Augusta. So people know that if you get to one of those major hubs, there's a concentration of resources available for you, much more so than you might have in Mars Hill, Maine. So that might explain the migration from over the state, but from out of the state, somehow information's getting out there. The reality of this is that we aren't flush with resources. It's not there. And whatever this promise is of all these resources, it's not there. And the message probably should be, folks, we can't help everybody. We don't have the means or the methods to help everybody. We had a family that showed up. I believe they came by bus from out of state to Bangor. It was a mother and a father and 3 children, all under the age of 5. And the father had a job offer in Ellsworth, Maine, but they had no vehicle. They had no money. They show up in Bangor, ask for some help. Bangor kindly put them up at the Vacation Land Inn in Brewer for one night. And then at 11 o'clock at checkout time, they had no place and no way to get to Ellsworth. So they're out on a hot day under the shade of a tree. Phones are dying. City Hall's involved. My officers are involved. We're trying to figure out how we can help. Ultimately, an employee from the city of Brewer, our assessor, she actually drove them to Ellsworth. So that was really cool. So we got them there. But Ellsworth had the programming for family shelters, which I guess we don't have a lot of that. So there was nothing here for them. We really didn't have anything that's going to help them connect. I started placing some calls. I went out and I talked to 3 different people experiencing homelessness, to 3 different cases, and I would talk to them and I would say, what's going on in your life? What's your plan? How long have you been homeless? Do you have a caseworker? One particular individual, he said, yeah, I have a caseworker. And I said, who is it? I don't know. What entity? I'm not sure. And I said, okay, I think you need to go over to CHCS and let's make sure we get you connected, because wandering around here, you're not going to solve this problem. So let's take your time and let's focus it on something that'll get you ahead, not behind. Then I went back to the office. I started working the phones. So I called over to Bangor Public Health. I talked to the lady in charge of the homelessness program for providing vouchers for housing. And I said, please tell me how it works. I really don't know. I'm trying to navigate a system, so if I meet somebody on the street, I can point them in the right direction. And if I don't know, then my people underneath me certainly don't know. And these cards, these rack cards that we pass out 2-on-1, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. We're just checking a box, and it's a waste. So I want to tell somebody something that's impactful and meaningful and actually solves a problem. So they explained the program to me. And then I said, oh, great, can I connect somebody to you? No, we don't do direct referrals. We contract through these nonprofits. And then the nonprofits do the screening and the referrals to get on the magic list, the voucher list. So you got about 3 or 4 nonprofits that are connected into the system. The most prominent one is the PATH program through CHCS. So I called the lady in charge of that, and I said, please educate me on how this works. And we had that discussion, and the bottom line is they are not flush with cash. There is not a plentiful supply of places for people to go. And the list is a waiting list, and it could be a waiting list for quite a while. So that's problematic. And somehow, perhaps maybe a more effective messaging should be, we have limited capacity. If you come, we may not be able to help you. That might be more truthful to people as they decide where they want to land. The other thing is when you look at this housing first model and how you get on the list, it's like a behavioral matrix or assessment. For example, if you lost your job and you couldn't pay your rent and you got evicted, and it's summertime and you're out on the street and you're living in a tent and you got a gym membership and that's where you shower and you're working full-time in a restaurant. You're not in trouble with the law. You don't have any psychiatric illness. You don't have a drug problem. But you're truly down and out because if you need to get another place, you need the first month, last month, and security deposit. That could be $3,000, $4,000. How are you going to do that? So this is the situation. They get on the list, the bottom of the list. And this is a fluid list. So the ones that go to the top of the list are, do you have substance use disorder? Are you drug addicted? Do you have co-occurring or psychiatric issues? And are you chronically homeless for over a period of time? That doesn't mean couch surfing. Couch surfing doesn't count. It's like out on the street. And have you had adverse contact with law enforcement, i.e. been arrested in the past year? So if you're checking those boxes, chronically homeless, some mental health problems, I've got substance use disorder, and I've been arrested because I'm not behaving well, you're at the top of the list. Now, let me ask anybody out there in the listener land, if this initial investment, let's just say this case is going to cost you $10,000, and you put $10,000 toward fixing this. The thought is if we can put them under four walls and a roof, then they'll be acceptable to the service programs that are offered, and they'll get in a better place. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But what happens if the behaviors continue? You've now picked somebody who has a recent history of bad acting, and we're going to put them into a place, so whether they're in a tent or you're in an apartment, if the behaviors remain the same, what have we done? You're eventually going to get evicted for that conduct. You're going to impact your neighbors. And what's that $10,000 do for you? Now, what happens if we take that working couple and we take that $10,000 and we invest in them, and suddenly they don't need public assistance a year from now? Was that a good investment? Yes, it was a good investment. So maybe we should manage this like you manage an investment portfolio. You have some really safe investments, you got some medium risk, you got some high risk, but put most of your effort in the safe investments. So out of this homeless community, you're going to have segments of people that are homeless by purely circumstance, which is going to be a small segment of that. And then you're going to have a larger segment of people that are drug addicted and have mental health issues. And you have a very small segment of people that are critically mentally ill that probably need to be in an institution. So we're dialed in, our programming is dialed in on this middle ground of people that you're getting in trouble with the law, you're using drugs, and you're resistant to services. It's not because services haven't been offered. It's because I don't want services. I don't want to change. That is not homelessness. That is a lifestyle choice. The people that are displaced and have no other options, that's homelessness. But yet they're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes time for the services that they need, which would be money and a hand up to get into housing. The people at the top end that are critically mentally ill should be in a place where they're being cared for, or those places aren't around. And then this medium group is gobbling up all of your resources and you have nothing to show for it, or you have very little to show for it. There are success stories. But if we had a tally today and you said, how many people in this general area are we counting as homeless? Is it 150? Is it 2? Is it 250? I would surmise it's not more than 250 people. Out of that segment of 250, how many are truly homeless because of circumstance that are doing the right things? They just don't have the resources to get back on their feet. That would be a very small slice of that. Why aren't we helping them? Now they're no longer considered homeless, right? You've got some wins. Why aren't we devoting more resources to the people who should be cared for that can't care for themselves? We could do that. Now you've removed that segment. And now we start looking at our more risky investments, but are still good investments. But you should be able to have some skin in the game. You got to accept the programming. You got to accept the help. So that's one thing. The other piece to this, what I learned is it took me 3 hours to kind of work the phones and navigate things. And what I'm hearing or my understanding is this is a tiered approach. This is not a one and done. We're going to make an appointment. You're going to show up. You're going to have another appointment. You're going to have to follow through. Look, when somebody's life is inside out and they're addicted to substances and other issues, they don't keep an Outlook calendar. They're not on task. This system, it's not going to work that way, especially if they're resistant. You've got to be able to get them where they're at, and you got to make it easy. It has to be an easy system to navigate. And I don't think it is. I don't think it's delivering as effective as what we could, keeping the clientele in mind, if that makes sense.
What do you think about the homeless committee that the city of Bangor put together?
we'll wait and see. I'm hopeful that they're going to roll up their sleeves and do the hard introspection as to what have we done, what have we spent, what do we have to show for it, what could be done different. We're always chasing the next greatest things like tiny homes and whatever. Well, go look up what happened with the tiny home projects in Oregon and Washington State. It was, again, a homeless housing first model. So we take you out of the tent, we put you in a tiny house, and guess what happened? It got trashed. It's the same result because you got the same behavior. So rather than look for the next best thing, why don't we just look at what have we done? What hasn't worked? What adjustments can we make? Is the system user-friendly? If it's not, how do we make it so? That's the type of thinking and critical process I think this is going to need. There's not going to be one easy solution, and we can't solve all of it, but we certainly could knock this down to a manageable level. And I think the other thing is public messaging, is getting out there to say, folks, this is not the land of milk and honey. We don't have the money or the resources to solve all your problems. So you can come here en masse, but it just isn't going to happen. You're going to be very disappointed, but at least we were honest with that and we put that out there.
Do you think a lot of this started when they opened up the hotel on Alden Road and a lot of people came there?
Oh, yeah, they came from all over. That was a hot mess. My daughter wanted to work at the ice cream shop, and I said, I don't think so. Nothing against the ice cream shop. It's just at that time, that was the old Ramada. It was crazy. So I actually took a couple lunch times, and I went and sat, and I watched the parking lot, and I was watching open-air drug deals, and it was crazy. It was just nuts. And they came from all over. You had access to a hotel, you had hot meals being delivered, and you could do whatever the heck you wanted to do. I do remember that they were still in construction at the time, and I went up to talk to the construction company, how are things, especially next door, and they're like, we're getting things stolen all the time, and we're chasing people off. So I was doing my due diligence because this my baby girl was going to go work at a place, and Dad needed to make sure it was okay.
As we wrap up, you're not only the Brewer police chief, but you're also the fire chief. How's your team over there?
We're doing great. We're fully staffed, and knock on wood, a lot of places aren't fully staffed, but we are. Fire department is doing well. We had a couple of new hires. They're just doing exceptional, the rock stars. On the police side, again, we've had some new hires, rock stars. We now have 5 lady police officers, and they are rock stars too. They're just a very capable bunch, and they keep us all in line. The boys are typically messy. They don't do their dishes, and they don't cover the plate in the microwave, so things blow up everywhere. And for the first time, these ladies, they make them toe the line. They got to pick up after themselves and stuff. So
sounds like our house.
But no, we're doing great. The fire department, we bought a used ambulance from Old Town, and the reason being is we wanted to have that as a backup. Number one, in case we had a critical event, but number two, we've had some ongoing concerns about the sustainability of Northern Light Capital Ambulance, and those concerns still exist today. So if the worst were to happen and we didn't have that arrangement anymore, then we want to be operational quickly so people at Brewer don't go without. So the big challenge we have right now is, now that we have the ambulance, and it's a beautiful ambulance, now we got to fill it with the right stuff. So we're working on that. We've got a couple grants out there we're waiting to hear back on. Hopefully, if it comes through, then we'll have that ambulance all staffed up the way it's supposed to be, and then we're deployable. So no complaints here. We're doing good, and we're having a good time. And at the end of the day, it's about the culture. And on the PD side, we're currently working on our 3-year strategic plan, and we should be ready to launch that in about a month and a half, 2 months. And we've solicited input at all levels from the department, so it's really exciting. And we're going to retool everything around that as far as our focus on performance. And it's all in different pillars of community engagement and drug issues. But it's going to help us even have more of a laser-like focus on the things that matter most, with input on as to how to get there from everybody in the department, from the lowest ranking positions all the way up, so that we have this buy-in because we're all in it together. And then I'm going to repeat that same process with the fire department after we get the PD done. So I'm really excited about the future. I really enjoy the people that I serve with, and there's not a day I don't look forward to going in.
Well, as a side note, how much do you need to raise to fill the ambulance with equipment?
$200,000.
Oh, $200,000.
Yeah, it's just nothing.
Nothing.
Change. Yeah. It's crazy, the prices. An ambulance used to run $150,000. And post-COVID, the same ambulance is $250,000 now. A ladder truck used to run about $1.2 million. Now the ladder trucks are $2.1 million. And the reason being is there's only a finite number of manufacturers, so they got you. And they're all at the same price point, so that you don't have this competitiveness to drive the prices down. So you get to what's supplying the ambulance. Well, they got a power load stretcher, which is an electric stretcher. Gone are the days where we manually pick people up because of backs and stuff. Well, one of those brand new is $100,000.
Ooh.
You can get a refurbished one with a limited warranty for $50,000. $50,000
Bargain.
for refurbished. Imagine that. So it's sticker shock. I had no idea that things on the fire side, the prices were so outrageous, but now nothing surprises me. They got you coming and going.
Brewer Police Chief Chris Martin, thank you so much for joining us. We truly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, and be back some point in the future.
Absolutely.
We certainly appreciate the education.
Thanks.
Hey, listeners, make sure to stay tuned. There's another episode coming right up.
You've been listening to Q Point.
Follow us at qpointpodcast.com or on your favorite streaming app.
This is where you can get the news from the people who make the news.
Make sure to join us next time.
We hope you tune in.
Q Point Podcast invites guests and candidates from all parties to join the conversation. The views, information, opinions, and comments expressed during this program do not necessarily represent those of the host, Q Point Podcast, associates, affiliates, and CQRE LLC.
Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The most important voices aren't always the loudest ones. They're the voices of everyday people, raising families, running businesses, serving their towns. That's who we want to hear from. Share your ideas with us online, and let's make sure those voices are never left out. Find us on Facebook or on X or at qpointpodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Catch every episode at qpointpodcast.com or wherever you stream. Tune in and tell your friends.